Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's development session on education, information, and advancement. My name is Ray. I oversee youth engagement at UNA USA, and I'm so excited to hand over tonight's program to our 11th Youth Observer to the UN, Himaj Nagareddy. We have a really great lineup of speakers for tonight. And after all their remarks, there will be time for a Q&A. And then, of course, following the format of our other development sessions, if you've joined us before, we will open the floor to our audience members. And that's the chance where you can share your ideas, your experiences, your work, and of course, your recommendations for our youth declaration. So please hold on to your questions, but of course, in the meantime, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And without further ado, Himaja, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ray. And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday. I literally had to check the calendar because what is time anymore? I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for being here in this space with us as we talk about really important topics around education, information, and advancement. We have such an incredible lineup of speakers for you. And we typically like to start before we dive into speakers with a little bit of an overview of why we're all here today. What is the purpose of us convening? So Ray and I, at the beginning of my term, we're trying to brainstorm ways to further engage our youth voice and power in the space of human rights advocacy. And one thing that we really gravitated towards was that this year is the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a profound and significantly symbolic document that's carried so much weight and power around the world when it comes to advancing and protecting human rights, especially for those most vulnerable. And from there, we wanted to really dive into how can we shine a youth light on the human rights that we oftentimes talk about. Young people are disproportionately affected by many of the human rights that we discuss. And these manifest in different ways, especially for us as young people. When we talk about peace and security, for example, online peace and security is a huge component of the youth experience that oftentimes gets undervalued and under talked about in these spaces of the UN. And so this space is really for us to talk about youth-specific rights related to these fundamental human rights for this session around education, information, and advancement, so that we can pull together our collective knowledge, our collective experiences to inform what will be a pretty landmark document on our end of creating a Declaration of Human Rights by American youth. This will be written by and for young Americans who believe in human rights, who believe in the power of youth advocacy for these rights, and a powerful document which we'll then share with our UNA USA network, our UN Foundation network, as well as some of our partners that we work with at the State Department, our US UN mission. We're thinking big here. And you all are such a fundamental aspect, a fundamental leader in this work, because the feedback that you contribute to us by being here today and sharing your time with us is only going to help us build this document even further, will only help us create a more stronger front for when we create this Declaration of Human Rights. So just so appreciative of each and every one of you for being here today. And we typically like to start off these sessions with an incredible panel of speakers, youth allies who work in these fields to really advance human rights. And these are incredible people who have been so gracious with their time to share their insights with us today. And so without further ado, I really want you all to hear from our incredible lineup of speakers. So I will dive full steam ahead. My first incredible speaker that I am so honored for you all to meet, just so honored that she's here and so thrilled that you all will be hearing from her, is Mansi Singh. She's the founder and executive director of ENCODE Justice Oregon chapter. And I'm so thrilled that she's here with us today to talk a little bit more about what she does around education, information, and advancement. Mansi, thank you so much for the time, for your time. The floor is yours. We cannot wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. This is such an incredible opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Mansi Singh, and I'm a high school student in Portland, Oregon. I am the founder and executive director of the ENCODE Justice Oregon chapter, and we're a coalition of youth activists fighting for human rights, accountability, justice, and structured policy under AI. So currently the Oregon chapter is corresponding with Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum's Consumer Privacy Task Force under the Oregon DOJ to advocate for SB 619. And it's a groundbreaking consumer privacy law crafted to increase transparency and consent between consumers and private business owners who are processing personal biometric data through the use of surveillance technology systems. In addition, I, along with other chapter leads and executive directors at Encode Justice, we spoke to a variety of corporate representatives in grassroots organizations such as Google, the Washington Post, World Economic Forum, Electronic Frontier Foundation, and even the United Nations. We actually spoke to Stephanie Linden Seal to talk about the UN's tech and human rights sector, discussing projects like VTech, which is a toolkit developed to inform technological corporate policy, human rights data analysis of FOIA information, and then other strategies for approaching ethical response in the technology sector. And in our conversations, we primarily discussed how current corporate and organizational approaches are ensuring that AI is being developed in a socially responsible manner, and how our voice as a youth organization can support that mission. In addition, I actually enjoy writing about theoretical topics in AI philosophy. I actually did write about the neuroethical implications of AI sentience. And I do participate in Ethics Bowl Club at my school, where we talk a lot about ethics, social justice, and technology specifically. And so, in all of these efforts, from working with legislators to discuss AI advancement, and then, talking to corporations and, the Washington Post about society's biggest concerns about, generative AI, we're noticing that the youth voice and movement is, a movement like no other. When we watch court cases about the banning of TikTok, or we're asked questions like, is AI going to take over the world? What we realize is that our indispensable personal experience and interaction with these technologies is necessary in bridging the gap and advancing these discussions about human rights in the technology space. And it's organizations like Encode Justice and numerous other efforts across the country that are giving youth who are educated and passionate about societal ethics the platform that is necessary to voice this experience and use it as a catalyst for change. So, very excited, great opportunity to be able to speak here today, and I'd be willing to answer any questions about artificial intelligence and philosophy, ethics, and societal good. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh my God, Monty, I feel like everyone is kind of fangirling right now. I am for sure fangirling because it is so crucial, the work that you're doing. I mean, we hear oftentimes about the gaps between understanding the most recent advancements of technology, AI being at the forefront of the advancement of technology, and gaps when it comes to policy. And that's exactly what you're doing, is you're helping to bridge those gaps. You're helping to bring social justice and ethical thinking to the forefront of these types of advancements. And you're doing it within your own community, and you're launching this nationwide. And just so grateful for everything that you do. It touches upon so many social injustices. It's working to advance the equity that we really hope to achieve as we continue to move into, and we're already in this digital age, as we continue to move further into this digital age. And so just so grateful for everything that you do, Monty. I see it in the chat. We'll keep it coming. And I'm super thrilled next to introduce you all to another fantastic speaker, Haley Campbell. Haley, we have been through some times together. I mean, I know that we first got to meet in person during COP27. Truly one of the greatest moments meeting you, because I had been such a huge fan of your climate advocacy work for so long. Meeting you in person was truly one of the highlights of my COP27. And the work that you do to mobilize young Americans, to mobilize people around the world around climate education, has just been so personally inspiring. So super grateful that you're here with us today. For you all who don't know, Haley is a climate and social justice advocate and executive director of Care About Climate. Haley, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me to join y'all. This is really an amazing opportunity to learn so many cool new things. I just feel like I learned a year's worth of information on AI in about 3 minutes. So thank you so much for sharing. It sounds really, really amazing, the work that you're doing. And likewise, Himja, so honored to be able to meet you and talk with you and just extend the relationship beyond ends, and your ability to bring young people together to have these conversations is just really inspiring. So thank you so much for doing all this work. And yeah, so what is climate education? What's going on with it, and how have why is it important? First and foremost, the reason I got involved is because I learned about climate education in high school through a teacher. I originally grew up in Texas, though, so we didn't really talk about climate change anywhere or at all. Even my parents were not fans of talking about it. And so I then made it my mission to convince everybody around me to care about the future of our planet and went to study it. And now, as you mentioned, lead a nonprofit about it, where we train young people to be empowered with climate education to make an impact in climate diplomacy spaces. And so it's really an honor to be able just to help more young people get access to education and also see themselves as part of the climate movement, much like I didn't before and wasn't really allowed to be a part of it. It's really that space to build connections and build education and opportunity just to say, hey, we can all do something about the climate crisis. And so a couple of other things that are going on right now regarding this is one on Action for Climate Empowerment internationally is part of the Paris Agreement. And it's this article within the Paris Agreement actually that people are or countries are supposed to adhere to that says communities must be empowered with information, awareness, and opportunities to participate in climate change decision making and implementation. And so it's really important for me to be able to get behind that because I want to create those opportunities for other young people who didn't have those opportunities before. Again, people like me who never even saw themselves being on a call like this. And so throughout the years, we were able to build a lot of youth power for ensuring that young people could be stakeholders in these spaces. And fortunately, at the last COP, we were able to finally secure young people as stakeholders in decision making on climate change and as well as implementation for the very first time as part of one of the outcome documents. And so now we have this policy that we can take to our national leaders and say, hey, you agreed to include me and here's how I want to be included. And we're doing that. For example, I'm also helping host the local conference of youth on climate change, which is hopefully going to be happening this year again in August. And this is an opportunity for young people all around the country to come together to talk about our climate priorities and then deliver them to the White House to say, hey, this is what young people want and what we need. And it's driven in part by young people, which is often a gap in why we don't actually have climate education, is because our education system is not driven by what young people are saying as their needs. Only 2 states actually have climate education in their curriculum in the United States, Connecticut and New Jersey. And all of the other states that are part of this program is meant to inspire, teachers and states to actually be a part of climate education. There's 24 states that are a part of this. When they reviewed those programs, like 85% of all those programs said that people were doing a really bad job on teaching about climate change. They maybe give 1 or 2 hours of their time to it and then move on, which is not enough because, as we all know, when it comes to climate change, it's shaping our futures where we live, play, our quality of life. And so it's not just about what's at stake, it's about, how are we going to have these skills to adapt to our future? And before we can do anything, we have to be able to have access to this knowledge and to participate and for people to bring us along and to learn from them. So something that really stands out for me is that last year at the local conference of youth, a young person said, why don't teachers just let us go protest for our future on Fridays like everybody else? Why do we have to get in trouble? And I was like, you're kind of right. It should be a part of your education to be able to use your voice to stand up for what you believe in, and teachers should be willing to support that. And so reflecting on this, I'm really looking forward to seeing more climate education standards, more ACE work this year, the local conference of youth, and of course, through Care About Climate, more education. We're going to be hopefully translating our courses into Spanish, French, and Arabic this year to increase access for people, since we know though English is the language of the UN, it's
Oh, Haley, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Don't know how that happened, but anyways, to wrap it up so we can go on to somebody else. As a note, I also work on climate adaptation locally here in Honolulu, as mentioned, and education is really a big part of my job here, where we're creating games to help community learn about climate adaptation. We're creating posts and materials. So it really is not just about school. It's also about how do we continue to give access to education to people that never had the chance to learn about climate change. And so hopefully that can be all a part of our priorities here as we keep these discussions going.
Thank you so much, Haley. That was so incredible. incredibly fantastic. And you touched upon so many crucial points: the importance of traditional and non-traditional climate education, the importance of empowering young people through education and information sharing, and opening up access to international types of climate advocacy like COP27, well, now COP28, which is coming up, but also the importance of local climate action and the education that needs to be happening at the local level and the policy changes that we can create around that. And also want to underscore what you said about LCOI, super, super important. I went to my first LCOI last year. It was so inspiring and just helped me hit the ground running to think about all of these international topics that we do discuss at our annual UN climate change conferences. And so if you have a link, Haley, definitely share it with the group, because I think that people would be really excited to learn more about how these types of local conferences on climate change really do add to the advocacy that we do take on the international stage at these types of conferences. And so thank you so much, Haley. You were incredible. This was incredible, and just so grateful for your time. And with that, super thrilled to introduce you all to our next speaker, Estelle Zadra, who's an educational specialist at UNESCO, at the UNESCO New York office. And honestly, Estelle, I had been low-key stalking you this morning, looking at the work that you've done. It was so incredible to see how you've continued to champion education as a forefront in your work at the UN, and can't wait to hear what you have to say to our incredible audience. So Estelle, I will give the floor to you. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be with you, and it's refreshing and so dynamic, and so it's great. Yes, I'm from UNESCO. I've been working at UNESCO for more than 25 years, so quite a lot of time. And I am indeed an education specialist. I've worked in many different countries in education policy and helping ministries of education to develop and strengthen the education system. But now in New York, I'm working at the UN. And in fact, I'm not working so much on education, but more on freedom of expression and access to information. So I'm very pleased, because it's exactly the title of your session today. It's education and information. So it's difficult because UNESCO is doing so much. So I have tried to select a few elements here to discuss with you and to dialogue. I will start by saying that. Right, of course, the basis of this discussion is about human rights. And I must say that human rights are never definitively acquired. And I'm speaking to young people, it is very important not to think that the other generations, they have done the work. They have never done the work. It's never finished. And we still have to fight again and again for old right, current right, and future right, as Nancy was saying about new digital aspects and AI, for instance. So it's very important to keep that in mind. So education, it's a right that is inscribed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, of course, and there's a lot of normative instruments at the UN, and UNESCO is also having its Convention Against Discrimination in Education. So we have been working with this legal instrument for quite a while now, but it's not enough, and we still have to continue fighting and convincing more countries to sign up this declaration, which is signed only by 109 countries only. So we really need to go on further that. What does imply this right is that one aspect that the state is the first duty bearers of these rights. But of course, our role as citizens is to make sure that the states faces their obligations, and that we can still monitor what's happening in the ground. So that's what UNESCO is doing. We have a lot of monitoring tools developed, and I invite you to go to the website of UNESCO. You've got the Global Monitoring Report, and we've got a lot of database. So it's really good if you have essays and papers, but if also you want to fight to see where are the issues and the obstacles and the barriers to education, go there, because there you will have information that will help you to argument and to have convincing arguments to fight for education rights. UNESCO is doing also, we of course support member states. As I said, that was my job for more than 20 years, developing education systems, strengthening education system, planning for education. And what does it mean? That means that we help member states, countries, governments to set their priorities in terms of education and to transform these priorities into action, into plans, into education policies, and to make sure that they've got, of course, the budget, the resources to implement these education priorities. And that's where we worked towards the right of education, is to make sure that they give access to education and they give access to quality education. But of course, what we have seen of course, we are always trying to see what the evolution of these rights. And I will mention few of them that are now the priorities for UNESCO. The first is greening education, and I'm very pleased to listen to Hayley. It's very important, climate and greening education, how to make sure that the education system, they have education, they teach climate issues at school, but they need also to be green, to have buildings that are greener. We are working also on these two aspects. Digital learning, definitely. And there I will speak about very quickly about the other aspect of UNESCO's work on freedom of expression. We have, a year ago, convinced all the UNESCO's member states, 193 member states, to sign the recommendation on the ethic of AI. And this is very important because we agreed all together with all these countries about how to make sure that AI technologies have ethics aspect in the development. And here, what we are doing, it's now we are trying to implement this recommendation and to support the countries to operationalize this recommendation, because of course it's not enough just to sign a paper. Well, now we need to help them to operationalize, to make sure that they have the laws and the regulations to accompany the companies towards more AI, tech ethic in AI. Of course, it's very important to the issues of qualities and skills and lifelong learning. You know that, so all of you have now, as we say, have the digital natives or whatever. So we have to learn on the go about the new technologies, and that's why it's very important to have also an education system that is able to evolve and to accompany the citizen throughout the life, in order not to allow adults lacking basic skills and basic tools to be fully active in their societies. I will stop here, but of course, I'm here to respond to your questions.
Oh my gosh, Estelle, that was so wonderful. Thank you so much for providing us that incredible overview. The importance of education throughout life, that was something that you touched upon that just resonated so much. Inclusive education, and also information about educational gaps, information about information gaps, and the work that you're doing to quantitatively look at what these gaps are and try to use that to provide guidance to member states, to other entities, and also a path forward. How do we operationalize these changes? It's not just about collecting data and providing recommendations, but it's about really bridging that gap with the expertise and knowledge that UNESCO provides to make sure everyone's moving forward in the same path towards equitable education, information, and advancement. And so the work that you're doing is so incredibly inspiring. I'm just so grateful for you being here with us today. And I learned so much just by hearing you. So thank you. With that, we are going to open it up for questions. We do have one more speaker on the way, but as typical of many of us, they are doing many incredible things. And so they might be popping in a little bit late. But in the meanwhile, wanted to give you all the chance to ask questions for incredible speakers. Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question? I think we have actually a question in the chat for Mansi. Mansi, do you see it in the chat? And I will also read it out loud. How long have you been working with artificial intelligence, and what made you want to start working with AI? And Haley, what jump started your interest in climate change? So Mansi, you can go first, and then we'll go to Haley.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for this question. So I am currently a junior in high school. I started my exploration with artificial intelligence specifically when I was a sophomore. And I think I had joined this club at my school called Ethics Bowl, which was pushed by a lot of my peers. And a big component of Ethics Bowl is taking current events and discussing, social policy and ethics, and morality around those issues. And we had a very specific case about I think data collection through social media platforms and the ethics behind that, the ethics behind Facebook, for example, using this data and information in their own research efforts. And I think that case really brought me into this space of first social media and then eventually extending that to the exploration of artificial intelligence. I also had an excellent mathematics professor who not only does he talk about mathematics, I did take discrete math and then linear algebra during my high school career. And, these kind of courses shaped my understanding, not only the mathematics space, but also he incorporated a lot of computer science and social good topics into the topics that we were learning, and explained how the subject that we're learning is so applicable to, the world out there. And so I think that introduction also sparked my interest specifically in the application of mathematics and computer science. And so I further discovered AI. I connected with Encode Justice. Actually, I saw a post about Encode Justice on Instagram, and here we are now. So yeah, and I think that's kind of where my journey started, how it's been going so far. And yeah, so I definitely, recommend youth specifically, find those people in your school community or in your local community who really harness or help you harness your passion, right? And if artificial intelligence and technology is something that you're interested in, then there are hundreds and hundreds of resources out there. I know, Stanford Human Center for Artificial Intelligence is a resource I like to go to and read a lot about there. And I know, New York Times, Washington Post, they have articles released every day. And, so those resources of mentors in your school are extremely important. UNESCO, is a great resource. And so, yeah, I would definitely, encourage people to connect and really start establishing those connections early on to further your interests. And that's how mine started. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mansi. Haley, I know that there's a question about what jump-started your interest in climate change, and then super excited that Juan is here. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have such a packed schedule, literally cannot wait to hear your insights. So right after Haley, we'll go to you for your remarks, and then we'll kind of open it up broadly for more question and answers, and then our consultation. But without further ado, Haley, do you want to answer the question in the chat?
Yeah, sure. Or I'm happy to come back to me as well if it just flows better.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sounds amazing. Juan, do you want to go and share your 2 to 3 minute insights? And for those of you who don't know, I have been totally following Juan on social media. If you don't, please follow him. Like, the work that you're doing around mental health advocacy is so inspiring. And you've done so much in the field of educating people about the importance of mental health, sharing information about mental health. And it's such a crucial topic that so many of us as young people really care about. And so the work that you're doing is just, it's changing the world. And so we're so grateful that you're here with us today, and can't wait to hear what you have to say. So I will pass it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting me on, and thank you all for being here. It's such an honor to be in this space with you all. I started my advocacy work at age 13 out of my own need. It became a part of my survival at that young age to talk about what I was feeling. For a long time, I repressed a lot of what I was feeling, and I did not know exactly how to describe what was going on internally. And I think that really was when I figured out that mental health and education go hand in hand, because as a gay man, And as someone who immigrated to this country from Mexico, it was really a process to understand what mental health was, because in my household, we did not speak about it. And I know that is not just my situation. I know it is a situation of many folks. And in order for us to destigmatize mental health and to encourage people to take action for their mental well-being, we need to educate folks on the importance of not just having conversations, but having resources that are of us, that from people who look like us, that represent us, and that is important to discuss the intersections of our identity. I have been grateful enough to be in the space for 13 years now. I just turned 26 last week, I believe. And last year I was able to speak at the White House with the First Lady, Jill Biden, and Selena Gomez, along with the US Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. A lot of my work in this space has been focusing on ensuring that the LGBTQ plus voices are at the table, especially now at a time where our country, we're seeing a lot of bills passed throughout the United States. And it's important for us to not just talk about safe spaces, but create intentional spaces where young people are safe enough to be themselves, to talk about what they're feeling, and to receive support. So I appreciate the space today. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. And it's so crucial that we continue to talk about it. And part of the education, information, and advancement is really about sharing our own personal stories and educating others on the fact that these things shouldn't be stigmatized. And what you said about, this advocacy coming from this self-need, from this need from your family, like it just resonated so much for me as someone who has immigrant parents myself. And so just so grateful for everything that you do. And I know today was super packed. And so just so incredibly grateful that you're here with us today. And with that, I will open up the floor for questions. I know that we had a question for Haley on climate change and what jump-started your interest in the field. Haley, do you want to take that?
Yeah, definitely. It's really great to meet you as well, Juan, and to hear your story. I have shared a lot of the same experiences as you, and so it's always nice to be able to reconnect with people who have shared experiences and learn from each other as well. And so what started my interest in climate change? That's such a big question. Actually, similarly, in high school, I actually had to do a project on global environmental problems, and I was assigned to basically argue and debate why acid rain was not a problem from a business case perspective. And I was so angry, and I asked my teacher if I could switch and be the environmentalist, and of course she was like, well, no, like I already noticed in the first month of school that you care about the environment, so you should challenge yourself. And it was a really good opportunity for me to learn that the importance of recognizing the different perspectives in the various different environmental fields and spaces, because though I don't see this issue as a political issue, it is a reality that we have to face. And so being able to understand perspectives and use that as, power to be able to create changes that you want to see in the world can be a really important tool. And it was even a tool I used to help convince my dad to believe in climate change. So it does really matter what you learn, and to have those inspiring people around you, and just to be able to reach out. And so that's what originally started it. And then it kind of just spiraled from there as I carved out a pathway to find support to be able to continue it, even though my community really didn't care as much as I did at the time.
Thank you so much, Haley. And actually, Estelle, I do have a similar question for you. What made you get into this space at UNESCO around education and making information more equitable? And what actions do you have for young people who may want to continue working in this field?
Yeah. What is your question about working with UNESCO or working in your daily life?
Yeah. How did you end up working in education and information?
Oh,
and what
myself.
advice do you have for young people who would like to work in a similar field?
I started right after my studies, and I've always been very passionate with development. So it's really my passion for helping countries and working with countries to develop and but at first I'm a public service specialist public institution specialist. So working in education was also a way to strengthening the ministries, the administration, the government. For me, it's very important because they have the mean, they are as I say, the first duty bearers to these rights. So definitely that was my passion for that. And I started to work for UNESCO, and I started with an internship. So I was very lucky to start with an internship, and they kept me. I don't know why, but I'm still at UNESCO. So advice, I think for me, it's I think it's very important to specialize yourself, to acquire skills, and it's a lot of different skills. It's not only knowledge. Knowledge is very important, but it's also working together, working in multicultural environment. What is, I think, very important is to understand others. I mean, as I say, some of us are very lucky to live in a rich neighborhood, maybe, or not maybe so wealthy, but we are in the US, we have education, we have health system, we have many kind of things, but keep an eye open to vulnerable groups within your countries, within your neighborhood, but also in the other countries, and to keep in mind that what we have here at our door is not what others have. So I think that's important to keep an eye open to what's happening at the other side of the world or the other side of your street. I think that for me that is that curiosity, and the other thing I would say that I love the way young people are taking the climate challenges, the climate issues so seriously, because I'm scared about what's happening, and I think it's very important. And that's one aspect that, yes, please keep looking at that, about all the new technologies could help. Most probably, we have a lot of opportunities with these new technologies to resolve some of the issues of the world. But we have to also take into account the risks and the challenges, and societies. I think, I'm afraid to say so, but societies, they have the capacity to always use the bad things and not make use of all the opportunities of a new technology. So I think it's important for all of us to keep in mind and to think about what this new technology could bring as a risk, but also as opportunities.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Estelle. And it really is it really is the world's privilege to have you at UNESCO to continue championing this work around making sure that this knowledge is accessible and acted upon. And Mansi put it in the chat so well. It really is about how we put this knowledge in action. That's where that change is really going to happen. And so thank you for that. And I know that we really want to dive into some of the questions that we have for our group discussion, but want to just pause and see if there are any other questions for our speakers, any burning questions that people want to ask. And feel free to raise your hand. Yeah, Kate, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Himija, and thank you for all of our panelists. It's so inspiring to hear about all the work that you're doing. I always love coming to these consultations because there are such amazing people featured. And so I have a bit of a loaded question maybe that can go, I think, for any panelist. But I think that security is something really interesting in the field of human rights, because safety is a human right. And security is something that's constantly changing as the world develops, like digital safety, when technology advances, and climate security, when we try to combat the harmful effects of climate change, and then, resolving conflicts in general that might interrupt peace and stability and just bring a whole lot of bad. And so this might be a loaded question or a long-winded one, but how do you think that we can adapt to addressing, I guess, some newer, for lack of a better word, or like rising security concerns that might come up, as we try to fight like climate change, as technology develops, as we try to grant access to education to some groups that might have a hard time receiving that, etc. I hope that all made sense.
It's such a good question. Thank you so much, Kate. And it really does speak to a youth-specific issue that we oftentimes see in this field of education and technological advancement. I wonder if any of our panelists want to go first and offer an answer.
I'd be willing to start, especially in the context of technology security. This is a huge, issue, huge topic. So actually, when me and some other representatives from Code Justice, when we went to San Francisco and we spoke with companies like Google and Meta, one thing that they really emphasized, of course, like you mentioned, Kate, is the whole issue surrounding, online security with social media, right? Data collection, kind of as we're seeing with the TikTok case and with the ban of TikTok, a huge issue and concern that's rising is, how is our information being used? And actually the work that our chapter is doing with SB 619 focuses on how on increasing transparency between consumers whose biometric data is being collected and the companies that are collecting them. And so, I think in addressing the concern that you're bringing up, I think, legislative policy plays a huge role in this. SB 619, for example, it strengthens to increase this transparency by putting, specific guidelines and metrics, letting companies know that, hey, you're responsible for, providing your consumers with the context of the following. You have to let them know your information is being used in this way. It's been altered in this way in the past, 24 hours. We plan to collect this information about you. I want you to be aware about it. That kind of awareness is what can be executed through legislative action. So that's a really great point that you bring up. Another really important thing that we talked about is a lot of these big tech companies like Google, Meta, and Facebook, they actually, with the rise of AI and a lot of these, large scale, really highly developed technologies, they're not sure how to approach this issue of security. They don't know exactly, there's a lot of, for example, during the 2020 election and a lot of other political movements, a lot of conspiracy theorist groups formed online, where people were starting to form really toxic, hateful groups. And a lot of these groups go unaware, right? And a lot of these accounts that are perpetuating these kind of motives also go unaware. And so a big part of that kind of discussion is making sure that, companies are focusing on one issue at a time, kind of breaking it down and scaling it and figuring out like, hey, this is an issue that's extremely pressing with privacy and security. These are the key stakeholders that are being affected by it. These stakeholders deserve a voice in this matter, and we should address this matter accordingly by assigning groups to this specific issue. So I think definitely in the context of privacy and security, that kind of framework and structure is extremely important. And I'm really glad that this is something that you're concerned about and you brought up because, in the technology space, especially, we definitely see how that issue can be addressed through the inclusion of a variety of stakeholders and structured policy and framework.
Oh my gosh, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Mansi. And I see, Estelle, that you unmuted yourself. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Mansi is saying. Just as an anecdote, I spent my full afternoon at the UN discussing about digital trust and security. So that's to show how this issue is definitely very important, and I link trust and security as they are linked together. But what I would like just to add to what Mansi said, security is definitely important, but we should not forget human rights. And it is very important to keep in mind that whatever we're going to do to improve the security of digital tools, we need also to take into account human rights. So we need to still and always have a human rights-based approach to this kind of development, because it's easy to use all these tools to improve security to take away some rights. I'm thinking, for instance, about journalists, journalists and in particular women's journalists, and all these issues of privacy and security. Sometimes they are used to impeach them to do their work independently and freely. So it's just one example, but it is very important to keep in mind human rights-based approach.
Thank you so much, Estelle. And yes, always centering that human rights focus is so crucial, especially when we're talking about the space of peace and security in the online world. So thank you. Julianne, I'm going to go to you next because I know you have a question, but also given the time, would love to start diving more into the discussion phase. And so I know that as one of my favorite people, you probably have a lot to say about this field of education, information, and advancement yourself. Would love to hear your thoughts on the topic. And yes, any questions you have for our panelists. So I will turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. So just as a quick question for Juan, I'm really passionate about mental health myself, and very soon I'm going to attend the New York State Governor Hochul's listening tour on what she's going to do on mental health. So I'm really curious on what you think about incorporating mental health into the education system and connecting with what Estelle has been saying. I feel like more can be done within the education system that we can do in schools to help mental health.
Thank you for that. And thank you for attending and for also being passionate about it. I'm always excited to hear other people, especially young people, take action around this. I think that mental health in schools should have already been in place a long time ago. And I think the way our nation is set up here in the United States, it's really difficult to get everybody on that same page of let's put a mental health curriculum in schools, because there's a lot of implications that may arise. However, I do believe that we need that because, one, I think for a while, we have been focusing on our response to a crisis, which obviously hasn't worked. We need to be ensuring that we are attending to people with preventative mental health resources, giving them the definitions that they need to identify how they're feeling, and so that the parents could know as well what to look out for in terms of signs for their children. I do believe that prevention is the way that we will support people's mental well-being the most, rather than a crisis response. We know that people sometimes go through things within the field itself that makes them lose that trust and that rapport with the field, that makes them not want to go to therapy anymore. So I do think that it is the future. I hope that the future is within the next 5 years and not something that we have to wait so long for, because I do believe young people need support at an earlier age, and people shouldn't have to go into a crisis in order to be seen by a therapist or to receive any of the wellness support that they need.
Imogen, can I add something to that really quick?
Absolutely. Please do, Haley.
Oh, love. I think related to that point, and especially with, there's a rise in climate anxiety and people don't even know how to talk about that. And a lot of, my friends, myself, other people who I know have all faced worry and fear over, what's happening next in our future. And even talking about mental health at all in school growing up could have been really helpful, right? Especially as we do, face additional crises that go beyond mental health, but ultimately come back to us as people who have emotions and lives, right? And so all of that training is setting up people for success for the future and anything that they're doing. It's not, just for one particular need. And it's just so important to be able to have those conversations and to recognize and to be able to remember that something I always say is, at the end of the day, we're all people first. Even if we're people building technology, we're people first, except for maybe whatever AI is turning into, I don't know. But we're people first. People make policies, they're people first, right? And what people need to live is a really strong community to help them grow and navigate life and adapt to change. And that's, if you have that community and that support, then you know how to recognize when someone or even yourself might need help. That's fine. Everyone needs a little bit of help along the way. And so just being more open to that and allowing us to feel is really important. So just want to acknowledge that, mental health education is so connected to everything everything that we do as people. And so really appreciate you, Juan, for sharing.
Of course. And sorry, let me just add to this real quick. I think in the future of mental health as well, we bank a lot on young people's resilience. And in my opinion, I know many of you might agree, young people shouldn't have to be resilient all the time. Young people should be young people. They should be allowed to just live.
I believe in resilience if it's a conflict at recess, but young people shouldn't be having to worry about them being not affirmed by leaders or by people in power and having their needs met. We need to talk about mental health, but we also need to talk the root of the system, right? Poverty, people not being able to put food on the table, people getting stressed out because there's no light in their home. These are real issues that impact people's mental well-being. It isn't just something that happens overnight, but it is a response to a system that has for years left a lot of people alone and with a lack of resources.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that real quick. That was an amazing point. And actually, in school right now, we are learning a lot about, how stereotypes like toxic masculinity, for example, can have a huge impact on the mental health of young men. And other mental health related issues are actually perpetuated by the by social media. Just to tie it back to technology and AI a little bit, what we're seeing with the rise of Instagram, Snapchat, of course, and a lot of these social media platforms is young people are struggling to find themselves and be comfortable in their identity because of certain things that are perpetuated on social media. But it's also in that dynamic being used as a tool to help people find that comfort space. And kind of trying to balance that dynamic is something that, big tech companies definitely should start taking a look at, and that, we as a society should start taking a look at. So just wanted to add that, and that was an amazing point that you made, Juan.
Oh my gosh, you all are so fantastic. I see the love in the chat, in people's responses, and reactions. Just so grateful to each and every one of you, for just your incredible insights on these issues that are so interdisciplinary and so interconnected and require all of us at the table, especially when we're talking about topics such as education, information, and advancement. There's so much that falls into the quality of each of those. And so just so grateful for you all. And so we'll open it up. I know that we have a few minutes and we want to let everyone go on time. So anyone who wants to chime in, reactions to what was said, personal thoughts on what other education, information, and advancement rights we should be talking about, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat. We really want to give you all the opportunity to share your thoughts and reactions. And Alana, I see your hand and you can go first. So grateful and super excited to hear what you say.
Thank you so much. So I actually attended New York City public schools, and I would say that education inequalities are really important to touch on. And the correlation between education inequalities and mental health is very clear. And a lot of public health research also shows the social media versus social media with mental health and that correlation. But I also think that we should be looking at other disparities too. So trying to put that into a more full picture, I guess.
Such an incredible perspective, because when we talk about educational inequalities, I mean, that just perpetuates generational inequalities. And so it's so important to talk about, and so grateful for you sharing that as part of your personal experience in such a huge public school district. So thank you for that. Jessica, I'm going to hand it over to you next.
Great. Thank you so much, Himaja. And I'm so glad to be here in this consultation, especially seeing the wonderful panelists, including Haley. Haley, thank you so much for being on the panel, and I am so glad to see you. It's been quite some time since we last saw each other. And Haley is an amazing youth, and she does amazing work, especially in the climate space. So I'm so glad that we are giving her the opportunity to talk about youth empowerment and climate. And as for this topic, it's very important that we recognize culture and heritage, diversity and sensitivity, especially the unique character and landscape of each community. So for example, technologies, education, AI, they must be designed, implemented, developed, tested, and improved with considerable attention to the foreseeable and forecasted impacts that they have on communities, on students, teachers, and each and every community member. Not every industry can, should, and would use the same technology, education, and AI. Therefore, we must recognize and apply an effective public-private partnership and also effective metrics to safeguard the intended access to quality education, to the use of technology, and to connecting the two. Thank you, and back to you, Himaja.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And you bring up such an important issue about really thinking about the communities that are being affected and really tailoring solutions and our understanding of these issues to the communities that we're from, the communities that we talk about, because it's so important in our work to make sure that when we're thinking about equity and we're thinking about advancements of education, information, and advancement, it really does come down to the community level. And so just so grateful for you bringing that up and making sure that we're all grounded in that cultural humility that we need to be leading forward with. So thank you. Opening it up to anyone else. Does anyone have any thoughts, things they want to add? We have 2 minutes left, so the clock is ticking. Anyone else want to share anything in terms of insights for this discussion? And feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. Either works. And actually, okay, I'm going to read what Paul said. This is enormously important work and it's mostly incremental. Sadly, I think it's something that makes a lot of people give up since we usually expect quick results. What do you suggest to help inspire people to stay in it for the long haul without giving into despair or cynicism? Actually, a really good question. And instead of just giving this question to the panelists, really want to open it up to everyone here. Does anyone here have any thoughts on ways to continue the fight, to continue advocacy? Because every single one of you on this call, and I know this because I recognize your names and I know you all, we're all part of this incredible family. You all are doing such incredible work around advocacy. So want to open it up if anyone has any thoughts to share on that. Yeah, Lana, do you want to go?
Well, I'm pretty tenacious, so I would say that tenacity is definitely needed in this work. And thinking about results, thinking about long-term view versus short-term view, and just thinking about every day, if you can advocate for someone else, that's really important. And thinking about impact, thinking about the impact that you make on one person, thinking about the impact you make on multiple people, but also even thinking about expanding that globally too. So any action that you do can influence someone or even multiple people too.
Thank you. And I'll hand it over to Kate for last words, because I know that we are almost at time. So Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to be quick so that we all get out on time. I loved Lana's response, and I was going to say something in a similar vein. Like, I think it's important to emphasize that change comes with the community, and I think it's important to emphasize that we're all here to support each other and make that sustainable change come to fruition. And yeah, basically everything is a community effort, and we should all lift each other up, because that's what really starts the global change and makes progress.
Thank you so much, Kate. Truly words to remember. And Juan, actually, you put in the chat, remember the why of the work. One's actions can create a ripple effect and celebrate the small changes that will contribute to long-term change. And that just, oh my gosh, that really resonates. And especially today, I feel like of all days, just so grateful for you remembering and centering us on remembering those small wins. And with that, I know we're at time. Ray, I wonder, can we do a quick photo with everyone here? Does everyone, and for people who don't feel comfortable being in the photo, feel free to turn off your cameras. If you want to be on the photo, turn on your cameras, but would love to kind of memorialize this incredible group. And so Ray, do you want to, do you have the tech? Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, I'm able to. I'll give everyone just a couple of seconds to get ready, and then I'll do a countdown.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, we're going to count down from 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me just do one more. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. And feel free, everyone comes from such incredible backgrounds. Share your socials, share websites that you are working on or that show your work. Feel free to use the chat as resources. Ray also just dropped an incredible list of resources, more information about the Youth Declaration, our speaker bios from today. Speakers, thank you so much for joining us. And also additional forms for you to continue to submit local actions that you're taking in your community to advance human rights that we want to keep spotlighting, because it's all about the local change that we can scale up to create global progress around this. And I see it in the chat. Thank you so much for you all joining us in this space, for creating such a safe, healthy, beautiful space for us to talk about these important issues. I'm just so grateful to each and every one of you being such a crucial part of that. And with that, I will close, but thank you all so much for coming, and feel free to also message me directly if you want to keep the conversation going. This is not just a 1 hour thing, but this is part of a much greater effort. So feel free to keep them coming. Just thank you so much to every single one of you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thank you.